Hi all, I had an interesting game last night. I was playing actually one of the strongest players in the Hertfordshire League, Simon Knott, a strong international master who heads up the Hertford team. The Hertford team has often won actually the championship, Division 1, so a mighty team. So let's see what happened. Knight F3. After some thought, I thought I'd go down fighting if I was going to go down. I played F5, Dutch defence, maybe inspired by Magnus Carlsen recently. G3, Knight F6, Bishop G2, but I'm choosing here the Leningrad Dutch. White castles, Bishop G7, D4, castles, and now actually, this is actually quite a popular move. Usually C4 is played here, but B3 is also the second most popular, and it annoys quite a few of the plans actually already. For example, going for E5, this bishop could be useful there. I know there's an exchange sack line, but it's a bit dubious actually for black, this idea against this system. I was a bit concerned about B3. I played D6 anyway because I thought I could switch into this kind of plan without having to play E5. So bishop B2, C6, and now an interesting move here, usually C4 here, but this is also the second most popular, knight BD2. It keeps an eye on E5, and the knight can also come to C4 if needed. So E5 is really being put out of the question. So I was thinking, how do I get some sort of attack going? Or should I just maneuver for a bit? I maneuvered for a bit more with knight A6, which is actually the top move in live book at move 8, 87 games. Also A5, 75, Queen C7, 24. But this is actually still within live book territory. Now usually players might play C4. My opponent played a solid looking E3, 17 games of that, so we're still kind of in live book here. Now, okay, here we venture off. Players with black are usually playing Queen E8 now. Here's an example game. I think Queen E8, it is quite crude, you know, maybe like this to get resources around the king. And you would think there's no chance of the opponent getting resources around the king. That's something I want to ask here. Basically, with Queen E8, yes. I mean, here's a game from live, but apparently, okay, the Queen is keeping an eye on H5, and apparently, you know, this has been played before, and it might be okay for black. But yeah, let's go in my game. I played H6. It's a bit rarer. Well, there's only 5 games of Queen E8, and there was actually 3 for H6, so it's not completely rare. Okay, now here we're really out of book, and this is like a super Petrosian type move. Rook B1. It stunned me a bit. I mean, it took me by surprise. It's just protecting the unprotected piece, but it does mean, you know, the bishop's ready to sort of exchange off for that. And it's the sort of move I've sometimes played because you want to weaken the opponent's king. And I'm going to play some weakening moves now, but I think I'm trying to, you know, draw a lesson here as well as show the game and keep the tension of the commentary here. This next move, I think these sort of moves, if I'm going to weaken my king, trying to go for my opponent's king, and this sort of thing springs to mind right now as a natural kind of thing. I think still that to be objective, you've got to look at how the opponent's resources can get to the king, even though it seems unlikely, extremely unlikely here. In fact, after a move like Rook B1, it's like deceptively tame. It's like the wolf has been dressed up in lamb's clothing here with Rook B1, you know, Petrosian style. So come at me, my opponent's saying. And I played G5, and actually this is the first bit of miscalculation, actually, because I didn't even consider that much H4. H4 was played, and now I'm in a quandary already, actually. Because if I continue with G4, positionally, this is looking bad. Yeah, this is looking bad. The F4 square. I don't want my pawns fixed in this bishop. Terrible. No, I want to keep my bishop alive. So I play F4. So it's becoming a pawn sack. And I thought, well, you know, all is not lost just yet. But you know, the notion of finding resources, trying to get my resources to the opponent's king. You know, if they're objective, you've got to look at one's own king's safety. What's happening here? So this is starting to be scary. H takes, H takes. Knight takes G5 was played. At least, you know, my bishop's okay though. And I thought F takes is okay with this idea. Now, there's an interesting junctions here, but f takes was played. Let's go with the game continuation. And I thought this is okay, bishop h6, because my bishops are okay. And I was kind of pleased, you know, maybe this is an interesting position. Knight df3. But, as I say, to be objective about finding resources, something actually subtly has happened with knight df3. If we visualize our resources next to the opponent's king, we should also perhaps visualize the opponent's resources next to our king. And he's blocked out actually this diagonal, of course, but what he has done is create another route potentially to my king, which I kind of miss here, and it costs the entire game, and that's why I'm emphasizing it. I think the real thing, I mean, this is like a make or break move, this next move here. It looks as though there's a fragile knight. How to address this? And there's a fairly obvious move which I perhaps should have played, and I tried for something more clever. But I think when trying for something more clever, that is a symptom of being given more time to find resources. But I think if we're going to find resources given a lot more time in a long game, it's good to be more objective. And maybe part of being more objective is to constantly monitor how resources can be placed not just next to our opponent's king, but next to our king. So in the light of that, I wonder if you can think about that. We want to get our resources next to the opponent's king without the opponent's resources next to our king, or at least factor that in. And something has changed. Although this diagonal is temporarily blocked, there's other things going on with knight bd2. Not so subtle. So what would you play here to try and continue the attack with black? And try and be objective about it. When I say objective, I mean, yeah, factor this in, you know, resources next to the opponent's king in the calculations. So I played a move which is refutable, and it might as well be a lost game here after. So if I give you 5 seconds to you might want to stop the video here and think what would be a really good move for black, and maybe as a bonus, what would be sort of trying to achieve the same sort of thing, well, with respect to this knight, but bad. And if you could see why, that would be fantastic. So you would get an extra 500 points. So this is a time here to stop the video. If this game is worth anything, I think it's worth this idea, a lesson in objective calculation to take account of resources next to the king. So, okay, starting from now, what would you play? Okay, unfortunately, I mean, I should have played, I think, Queen E8. I played Queen A5. It's a really optimistic move. I mean, I thought my opponent had made a mistake here or something. Missed this move. So the knight doesn't really want to step back to an out E3. It's just a total blunder move. It's a resource of sorts, but it's not factoring in the opponent's resources next to my king. And in fact, can you see the refutation? The refutation move, if I give you 5 seconds starting from now. It was just far too optimistic, unobjective, I'll call it. Yeah, just not factoring in king safety. So the refutation is Queen D3. Doesn't have to defend the knight. Ouch. Yeah, so if I play bishop takes, there will be check, and it will be devastation after. And in fact, there's this coming, pinning a knight, and that's end of game really. After the knight's pinned, you know, maybe, you know, just mating on h7 if this knight's pinned. So Queen D3 had to be factored into the analysis. So in that light, the only move that really makes sense is Queen E8, and I regretted this after, well, soon after. And this will be actually quite interesting, Queen E8. For example, bishop E4, let's go with this here. Bishop C1, knight G4, and it gets a bit scary. Say Queen D3, bishop takes, bishop takes. This is an engine line, by the way. Rook takes F3 to try and mate. White would have to give up 2 pieces, but even this it's not so clear. It's, you know, White's got an interesting position here, but this is much better than the game continuation, where I've got 2 pieces for a rook. It is much better than the game continuation, and it's the one I should have gone for. If we look again, yeah, it's like I don't know why. Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, basically, looking at resources around your king can actually maybe objectify the analysis. I think that's my point at the moment. Bishop C1, Queen H5. You know, I'm going to play knight g4. It's pretty direct stuff. e4, knight g4. Takes. Can't take with the knight. Again, rook takes here. This variation, check, should be okay. Again, it's similar. Two pieces for a rook. Also, like here, I think this is similar actually. I'm just looking at similar things. So you get the idea that queen e8 would have offered some chance just to get the queen installed here, because it's actually covering up g6. And this one isn't. This is a crucial difference. This one is not covering up g6. So yeah, I've just basically lost the game at move 15 with queen a5 through not thinking about resources around my king. But it's easier to say this, I mean, because when you look at moves like rook b1, you're thinking, you know, one's own king safety and the queen coming next to the king is a far cry from this position just at move 10. And this is why chess is just, you know, such a hard game. With a move like that, okay, there's the idea this is protected to exchange off this to weaken the king, but yeah, factoring in the queen coming next to the king, it was just absolutely lethal move. I mean, okay, let's see what happened. My position crumbles quickly. Bishop f5, e4. Okay, bishop g6. This is not good. An extra pawn up now. A centre pawn, and it's kicking the queen away from hitting the knight. So that's sorted out the knight. And now, in fact, white can even now play this, hitting my bishop, letting this go. And this is just such a crushing position. I've lost my light square control. My opponent's got the bishop pair, the centre. My position is crumbling. And in fact, here, after rook f7, rook f5. Now, if I move my bishop back, then there's things like knight takes e7, check, or worse, in fact, as I was about to find out. Knight h7, can you see what white plays here to finish off the game quite swiftly? If I give you 5 seconds starting from now, what would white play? I was hoping for taking and then maybe grovelling on a bit, but it's terrible. My position's totally been smashed. It's like playing against a form of Petrosian, because Petrosian used to provoke weaknesses and then you sometimes have these crushing attacks after. So I feel I've been Petrosianed in this game, but white has a nice move here as well. I got to laugh. That's the only thing you can do about such games. But what does white play here? 5 seconds. Bishop a5 actually. Yeah, my queen's embarrassed as well on b6. So not only was queen a5 pathetic, it actually leads to the queen being trapped now. So yeah, just at move 22, counter-attack the queen. Queen c4 on the rook. It's hopeless. Check here, d5. I'm losing a piece. I'm just checking just in case there's something magical. Nope, there isn't. I resign here. And the only thing I can really take away from this game is bad calculation. But if you want to like take the roots of what is the bad calculation, I think it was deceptively kind of non-dangerous after rook b1. The idea of the queen visiting my king was a far cry from this position. But I think to be objective in our analysis, especially if you're starting to make weakening moves like this and this pawn sack, things have really opened up here. g6 is evidently weak in theory. It just requires a bit of visualization. Even from now, as soon as that knight moves, there's always queen d3 to g6. This is actually, after knight df3, you might consider this a latent like 2-move threat. In any case, if that's considered, then that would help actually rule out queen a5, because you probably think a bit more about where you can defend the knight indirectly. I just completely missed this move, and it's basically a lost game after missing queen d3. A neat centralizing move with the queen, hitting that g6 square, indirectly defending knight, and black is just, it seems, totally on the back foot here. And the engines agree really that black's totally on the back foot here. Yeah, the only move to really like pursue things is actually this one, which interestingly, it is more factoring in the opponent's resources coming to the king, because it's actually covering g6. So this is not just the h-file attack or the knight. So spending an extra move is sometimes better than, I tried to optimize hitting the knight, I think, but spending the extra move is covering these squares away from resources, paying a visit to the king here. So queen e8. I don't know if that's instructive. I try and get to the root of, it's easy to ascribe a lot of games to like bad calculation, but it's interesting, maybe, one should think, how do resources get to the king? Maybe that's a way of making the analysis, you're ready for more objective analysis then, and not for a major surprise. But this was already a kind of latent threat anyway. So if one saw that before, then it will be easier perhaps to calculate, Queen A5, Queen D3. I'm not really sure. I mean, these are my speculations right now. I mean, the game was only like fresh from last night. But anyway, another interesting experience. But thankfully, I mean, I wasn't too miserable actually, because actually the team won. It was a 5-board match. And Tom Villiers beat Swanson on board 2. So we were level on board 1 and 2. It was a 5-board match. Board 3, Annex did, well, before we were lucky to win that. And board 5 was a draw. So we can't actually lose the match, and we're favourable on the adjourn position. So I'm happy that we're set to at least draw. No, I think we're set to win the match, because we just need a draw, and we're a pawn up in the adjourn position, and it's been actually adjudicated. So I'm pretty sure we've won the match. So I was kind of the sacrificial lamb, but I guess some disappointment. I'm not factoring in the opponent's resources coming to my king. It was just an incredibly optimistic move. I think in the shorter time controls, you get away with a lot more stuff, because the opponents aren't as resourceful, and in return they probably think they're losing a piece, or not find Queen D3 or something. But my king's pretty exposed, and yeah, it does seem unobjective as it's a bad resource, Queen A5, and unobjectively bad resource, not factoring in the Queen paying a visit to the king, basically. Okay, comments or questions on YouTube? Thanks very much.